2025 meeting of the City of Charleston Traffic and Transportation Committee. Thank everybody for being here and ask that we begin with a moment of silence, please. All right, thank you. We're in a little bit of a different configuration in this committee meeting than others, and that this is the first in a series of what I believe is going to be 4 meetings of this committee to take up the issue of the city's participation and the projects that we're interested in looking at for the county transportation sales tax referendum coming up next year. So we're going to divide this up. My understanding is by region of the city and then by project. And at the last meeting, we will sort of bring it all together and have a brief public comment period as well. I would just, as chairman, as a member of this council for a long time, like to start by saying there is really nothing from the economic side of things going forward in this county that is more important than we have funds available for infrastructure. And the half-cent sales tax, which has been in place since 2004, has been the principal source of that. We, I think, as a city can drive this engine and bring everybody together and be supportive of the county. So looking forward to this being a productive 4 meetings so that we can align with the county and our fellow jurisdictions around us to get a half-cent sales tax referendum that has popular support behind it and will ultimately pass. So with that, Mayor, I'm going to turn it over to you for your presentation. What I'd ask is everybody let the mayor do his presentation, then we'll have questions and discussion. Perfect. Great, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'll be relatively brief. This is kind of a kickoff meeting and wanted to talk, hang on, do we have the presentation up there? There we go. There we go. This is a kickoff meeting and wanted to talk through what the potential schedule would be for the next meetings, both for the public and of course for you as council members, so that, and I'll just go ahead and cut to the chase, you're going to need to do some homework and start talking and working through what your objectives are for your given districts, talking to the advocacy groups, talking to residents, talking to businesses, so that we get a very robust participation. And so, let's see. Not anyone. There we go. Well, there we go. So here's the general schedule that we have right now. Today's the 14th. We'll have another meeting on the 28th, a third on the 12th, one on the 25th, and then you see the city council meetings. This is all planning to get us to a list of projects with general detail on each project to be able to submit to the county by December the 1st. So we're backing up from that date. That's the reason for these special meetings. And as Chairman Seekings pointed out, the idea today is to talk high level about James Island and Johns Island road projects. And then on the 28th, we'll be doing homework on James Island and Johns Island between the 14th and the 28th. Come back with a plan for those James Island, Johns Island on the 28th that can be discussed in a robust discussion on the 28th. And then high level, the second part of the meeting on the 28th would be West Ashley and downtown. And then following homework on that for the 12th, we'd be wrapping up downtown and West Ashley for the 12th, bringing in the second part of that meeting would be Greenbelt funds, bike ped, public transportation, and then wrapping it all up on the 25th in advance of the meeting for city council on the 25th. So it's a tight time frame, and Chairman, that's a schedule that we put out. Happy to have some discussion on that, but wanted to lay that out for everybody so that you can prepare accordingly. So in the presentation that we gave last go round, we talked about a letter that was sent out to Chairman Middleton back in May 19th of this year, I mean, excuse me, yeah, no, May of this year. Sorry, my dates are getting confused. And really, this was high-level stuff. And all we did was take what the priorities were um, from the county and with city staff involvement from the 24 referendum, with the exclusion of 526. So this is just kind of a list of those, some detail associated with them. You all have a copy of this letter. This is what we're going to be looking to edit and fine tune in advance of December 1st. One thing that's important to note from my last discussion or presentation to you all is in the 24 projections, the county estimated that the aggregate number of dollars that would come in from an extension of the half cent would be 5.4 billion. I used a number, I rounded up to 6 billion, if you'll recall, with the assumption being that we could assume $600 million coming in from the SIB or the state during a 20-year period. And, 6 million was a nice round number. Since that time, the county has gotten a more conservative estimate for what an extension might bring in, and their new number is 4.25. And for consistency purposes, I think that's what we should all be working off of. It's really up to the county to decide where that number ends up. And though I did want to just point out to everybody that, the way they got to that number is they used, I think it was last year's receipts, actual receipts, and then just ran a 4% a multiplier out year over year to get to the aggregate number. And the where they got 4%, at least per the footnote, was that is the statewide county average for sales tax receipts, sales tax growth. Charleston County has been higher than that. We're growing faster, have more sales income than most other counties in the state. So I do think that this is a pretty conservative, probably very conservative estimate. But again, I think that is, one might argue, a prudent way to go. But just wanted to give you the qualifier on what the difference is between the two. So 4.25 is what we're talking about. Now, this is another effort that I demonstrated on the last, and I don't want this to be misconstrued as this is how it has to be, but I do think it's just an important gut check to say, okay, in the 24 initiative, excluding 526, the TST funding was generally broken down based on population. I mean, between North Charleston, Mount Pleasant, and Charleston. And Charleston covers Folly Beach, and Mount Pleasant covers Sullivan's Islands, kind of those quadrants, if you will, or not quadrants because there are not four of them, but you know what I'm talking about, sectors. And I do think we need to be respectful somewhat of that. I mean, we need data to drive it. We need to be looking at what's best for the region, and I know the county will do that. But, we can't assume that City of Charleston is going to get 80% of the proceeds when we're only about a little under half of the total population. So I just think as a gut check, this is something that we need to be paying attention to as we come up with our list of priorities. And so what are those priorities right now for James Island and for Johns Island, the two we were going to talk about today? They are Maybank Highway, and that is broken up into two sections, one from Main Road to River Road, and the other one is from River Road to the bridge. So basically Maybank Highway on Johns Island. And then on James Island, it's Harborview Road and then Folly Road. And what are the details on those? Well, Baybank Highway was a completion of the Pitchfork, some version of widening Maybank from River Road to the bridge, and then other improvements to Maybank from River Road to Main Road. Some widening, some light timing, pedestrian improvements, sidewalks, kind of a mixed bag of different improvements for Maybank, but it wasn't, and I do think this is important to note, wasn't four-laning Maybank for that stretch from River to Main Road, because it'd be extremely difficult at this point to acquire all of that right-of-way that would be necessary to do it. And then James Island, Folly Road, that's basically the Rethink Folly concepts that have been discussed and studied for, I don't know how long, Robbie, but a while now. It includes some beautification to the road safety audit and initiatives that DOT would be doing. So a pretty decent overhaul on Folly Road. Many of which I think council members that represent that area are pretty familiar with. And then Harborview is the one that's a little bit more, probably the least developed of them all. I mean, we all know Harborview there's plenty of congestion there, particularly at peak hours, getting on to the connector. It also is underwater during king tides like we had last week. So there's need on Harborview Road, but that scope is something that we might need to drill down on in a little bit more detail. So again, the goal for this is for us as council members and to work with advocacy groups and the general public to vet out what the specifics are on this. Now, here's the balancing act, though. We're going to want to be specific because that's what voters demand, I think. They're going to want to know, if they're going to vote for this, where their money's going and when. At the same time, we have to build in some flexibility for when things evolve, not if things evolve, right? And some flexibility can be built in, I think, by addressing corridors and general concepts and specifics where appropriate, but keeping it general where we don't have concrete engineered drawings. And so I will give a shout out to Councilman McBride, who has been working with advocacy groups on Johns Island and have come up with some pretty specific initiatives related to roads that I think will be a good basis to start from over these next 2 weeks to build what can happen on Johns Island. I think we need to do something similar for James Island. And Councilman McBride, if you could circulate that effort that you put together to council members, I think that would be a great help because, again, it's data-driven, it's thoughtful, it ties into a lot of the regional plans, local plans. It has input from business owners, has input from residents. So that's the kind of approach I think we want and need to take if we're going to provide something that the county can use to really help sell this. So here ends my presentation in terms of the general overview and what we're looking at. Happy to take any questions or open it up for discussion, Mr. Chairman.
All right, questions. I see Councilmember Gregory has his hand up. You go first.
Yeah, for me, we've got to define road projects. I still don't know what it is. I know what we're trying to get it to be in order for there to be some accommodation, particularly on the peninsula. I mean, have we expanded that definition to be more inclusive?
I think it's for us to define, and I mean, based on guidelines that are given in the ordinance, take 17, for example, and I think what you're probably referring to is water on the roads, right? So, or Harborview Road, Harborview,
Right.
right? I mean, if there are elements that were put in place to either raise Harborview or to protect against water coming across Harborview to keep it open, that would be, I think, very much within the scope of a road project.
And be precedent.
And so, you know, you want to be transparent and open about this. You want to be clear. And you want, I think it is important to tie these efforts on flooding of roads to the roads themselves. And I think that's easy to do. I think it really is easy to do, just given that we're in the low country and a lot of our roads flood. And a lot of the efforts that we're going to be undertaking will have to deal with water. And the beautiful thing about this is with the tidal and inland flooding partnership that we have, the Army Corps of Engineers, when there's an effort that relates to tidal and inland flooding, like Harborview Road, or like Bees Ferry at Church Creek, or like any number of different property.
Rutledge Avenue.
Right. You know, that part of that funding can come from the federal government, and it won't all be on Charleston County and visitors' tax dollars. So we need to be strategic and smart about this and leverage in as many different funding sources as we can. And so if we can marry those two programs together, that's a smart way to go. So I don't think it's going to be hard, back to answer your question, to define these so that it's very clear that these are road projects.
Because I'm going to have to be able to sell this. And
Right.
If it's not inclusive, it's going to be tough.
Right. Agreed.
Any other questions for the mayor? Yes, Councilmember Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, great point, Councilmember Gregory, because I mean, James Island, it's not just us, it's the town, it's the state. So when you talk about Rethink Folly, I mean, phase one is funded, you know, it's been there for a while, but phase two, I mean, help me, what would you guess? To 20 million, 25 million? But we've been waiting to see what SCDOT is going to do in their safety audit to be able to navigate that. How are we going to navigate that? I mean, so I think that's one crucial piece, because if it's phase two of Rethink Folly, then there have to be other entities, i.e. SCDOT, town. The town's not so much in the phase two area. That's sort of, I think, the position they've taken, but those types of things.
Well, I think the beauty of this being a county initiative is that it's across jurisdictions, right? So we're not worried about James Island Town or Public Service District or the city. This is Folly Road.
Then let me just focus on SCDOT then. SCDOT and the safety audit is the big.
Right. So road safety audit, the SCDOT is pretty clear that they'll fund the safety improvements. But we all know, and this is not meant to knock DOT, but they're ugly. And, you know, they need some work. And so where I would see in a scenario like that is we want to make this a beautification project, but make it safer too. So the county TST money would go towards those beautification efforts, whereas which is a betterment from DOT, and DOT would be doing the base work, right?
Okay. So we're talking sidewalks.
We're talking sidewalks, we're talking treescape, we're talking, you know, instead of a raised concrete medium with a cable, we're talking about a plant bed that have shade trees. And that could be the same in West Ashley. And it's gives us, in terms of dealing with the state and DOT, when we come with the county with a check, it gets you a lot more attention versus when are you going to do this for us, state? We don't like what you've designed. We want it better. We think it needs to cost another $20 million. Well, you might get kicked to the back of the line and they might go up to, Greenwood and do a project there.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you for that. I just think it's really important that that piece sort of has to be ironed out because, you know, to folks on James Island, that's.
Yeah.
These are the big, this is phase two is a big ticket item. Obviously, I would personally like to see some of our smaller projects, and that's where I think we need the sort of
Well-
town and the, you know, just these, finishing these sidewalk projects, finishing these safety improvements. These are, you know, in the grand scheme of things, these are probably a lot less expensive than we think.
Right.
And these are a really, really large component to James Island and living on James Island. So
Yeah.
I think some of those smaller things we should focus on as well.
If I may, you raise a really good point, and I know this goes without saying to the folks around this table and really to the broader community, but this is a critical effort. Councilman Seekings, Chairman Seekings, you made the point earlier that, you know, traffic we hear about all the time. And this is our solution. This is the funding source that addresses it. But I want to be clear, this is not a lottery ticket for any and everything that we want to have done or needs to be done. We are not in every one of the districts is not going to get everything that you want, but you're probably going to get 75% to 80%. And so we need to go into this effort with the spirit of compromise and working with one another and spreading the wealth and stretching those dollars as far as we can, and working collectively, and educating our constituents that, you know, it's a huge opportunity, but it is not a be-all, end-all on all efforts.
I think Councilmember Parker's point, high impact, readily available, readily buildable
Right,
projects
right.
where people can see and feel the effects of them quickly is really an important component to all this. I
That absolutely, yeah.
I see Councilmember McBride has his hand up. Councilmember McBride.
Yeah, thanks, Chairman. I just wanted to also point out that, you know, and Chairman Seekings, I think you're on the BCD COG board or one of the organizations with BCD COG. They presented a really, in my opinion, a really digestible presentation to Charleston County Council on June 24th, which I have a copy of. I'm sure Chairman Seekings has a copy of. Our fellow county council members have a copy of that. They take data, you know, BCD COG's purpose is to take traffic data and look at traffic analysis and population growth. So what's great about this presentation, it's like 15 slides. It was an entry level kind of early discussion to Charleston County Council back in June, just when we're first starting to really start to dig into this TST 2026 discussion. And it talks about 2019 traffic data all around Charleston County compared to 2045 expected traffic data all around Charleston County based on population growth and job growth. Because as we know, a lot of the jobs that are in Charleston County, the workers come from other counties into our county. So things like that we wouldn't necessarily be thinking about in our districts. And I bring it up because, again, it's digestible. It's not a lot of super detailed data. It's very digestible charts that explains the trends, and it shows specific road levels of service, A through F, all throughout Charleston County, and it's color coded. So you can see in your district what it is right now, certain roads, and what BCD COG expected to be in 2045. And that 2045 estimate includes projects that are already funded. So such as Main Road Segment A, the main 17 flyover project, for example, won't be done until 2028, but that's considered to be part of the 2045 analysis. So I'll share that with anyone who wants it as well. Because the reason I'm bringing that up is because that's obviously what Charleston County is going to be looking at. You know, they're going to be looking at data to back up whatever priorities they end up with. So if we come at them with similar data, similar framework, they're going to be, you know, much more likely to accept our recommendations, in my opinion.
I think all good points. I've seen that presentation. It's a good, I mean, it is a good entry level presentation to sort of talk about the challenges we're going to have going long term. Any other questions, comments for the mayor or anybody else? One thing I just wanted to touch on, Mayor, you said roads flood. Clearly they do. Councilmember Gregory sort of focused in on it, particularly when we get to talking about the peninsula. But I think another way to frame it is our roads flood, but what they really do is we use our roads currently as a series of storage facilities for excess water, right? And when we're doing that, they're not roads, right? They're storage facilities for excess water. So clearly, as we think about the projects and the needs and the bang for the buck that we can get, not just in the city, but regionally in the county, thinking about those roads that really do get affected and shut down, major arteries that are leading to things like, the hospital district across Johns Island, all those things I think are really need to be part of the conversation. We need to coordinate with the county to make sure that that's taken into consideration when this list is finally compiled, right? I mean, I think, and on the peninsula, our needs on the peninsula are very different than Johns Island and James Island. They're no less important. They're just different. And so I think we're gonna have to build all that together when we go and, work cooperatively. I don't want to say go sell to the county, but, work with the county to make sure that the projects reflect things that are real in our world today and we can get relief on it. So. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
Well, I just want to say, the county has been very collaborative in this process. They want to see this succeed. I really do appreciate all of their efforts to date on engaging with the cities. On these efforts, I feel very confident that they are going to work with us, be reasonable, logical, help stretch the dollar, understand that, a road project on the peninsula might be different than a road project on Johns Island. The scope is going to be different. And so, I have every reason to believe that the county wants to help us get to something that works for all. And so just want to put that on record. They have been great to work with to date and very accommodating. And I suspect that will continue as this effort intensifies.
Gotcha. I see Councilmember Greg online has his hand up. Councilmember Greg? I
Thank you,
know,
Mr.
right.
Chairman. I appreciate it.
Voice from Berkeley County is now entering the fray.
Well, so yeah, I appreciate this, and I appreciate that we're going to work hand in hand with Charleston County to try to identify these projects. I guess what I would say is, or what I'd like to ask is, are we going to have some kind of concerted lobbying effort to go into Columbia and demand some kind of action from DOT? Because this is all great. I mean, the half-cent sales tax is going to provide $4.5 million, whatever the number is, to Charleston County. But the fact is that it won't matter, because once you get to 526, it's a parking lot. And it's going to be a parking lot until 2045, which is when DOT says they're going to finally get around to widening 526. The state has been woefully inadequate in their attempt to address transportation issues in our region. And, I think we need some kind of concerted lobbying effort between Berkeley County, Charleston County, Dorchester County, the city of Charleston, Mount Pleasant, and any other, Somerville, any other city that wants to jump in on this. We are not being served well by the South Carolina Department of Transportation or our legislature with regards to road funding. If you go to Greenville, they've had 385 has been improved 3 times since they've constructed 526 or made any significant improvements to 526. In addition, there are 2.4 million trucks on the road from the Wando terminal from the South Carolina State Ports Authority. And who knows how many more they're going to add when Leatherman is fully operational. So I just say that to say that, like, I understand that this is needed. The half penny sales tax is gonna help, but at the end of the day, we're gonna end up in a parking lot on 526 for 20 more years until the state gets around to doing what they're supposed to do, which is sending money to try to fix some of these larger transportation issues.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, Councilman, Greg, you'll appreciate that last week I had a meeting with Speaker of the House, Merle Smith, and he relayed to me a story about how he was down here recently, I think it was 2 weeks ago, for a meeting in Mount Pleasant, and was going back to Columbia on 526, and got stuck for 2.5 hours. So he experienced it firsthand and said
Good.
that, no longer ever need to convince him of the traffic problems of the Tri-County area. And he was actually sincere in that. And as you I think are aware, has initiated a committee of legislators to come up with recommendations to revamp a DOT. He's also gotten a list of detailed recommendations from Secretary Powell on how they can evolve with the growing needs that different regions have. And that includes things like how they do formulas for road paving funds. So I am optimistic that there's a real concerted effort to let's modernize DOT and from within and from the legislature. But I think your point on us collectively coming together as a region makes a lot of sense. And we've been doing a little bit of that somewhat informally, but somewhat formally with the Columbia Day, where we have Berkeley, Charleston, and Dorchester counties invited to come up. And I think this year in particular, I can't remember the date on that, but we'll get it around. It will be great to have a huge turnout for that because they're going to be debating this bill. The goal is to have a bill passed in this session modernizing DOT. So it's incumbent on us to get organized and engage on that front.
Okay.
I volunteer to serve on this important committee.
Well, we were going to volunteer you anyway, because you've got the bi-county. I think the mayor's point on the modernization committee, I mean, committees being what committees are, one of the advantages we've got in the low country is Representative Brewer, who you, Councilmember Gregg, and all of us know fairly well. I think getting in his ear and sort of staying in touch with him as they go through this process will be very important to the success of that effort as we push forward in our effort to do our part in this county with the half-cent sales tax. We're going to need a partner in the DOT to be able to integrate all these projects, and certainly that 526 corridors. I think that they'll tell you in Columbia in their quietest moments, it's probably the most important project in the state. So we got to make sure that it gets to the head of the class. All right. Anything else? I know one of the things I forgot to do is I forgot to approve our minutes. I circled that. So can I get a motion to approve the minutes from September 23rd, please?
So move.
There's a motion. There's a second. Any discussion, additions, deletions? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. I don't think there's any other business. We had a motion from the mayor and a second from Councilmember Gregory. Got some questions and I've got a comment and then we can adjourn.
Yeah, just really not a question. I guess I'm assuming that we will be considering the West Edge District, Laurel Island, Magnolia, and so forth. Because within 2045, West Edge in particular could be in pretty good shape. And Magnolia, I'm sure, will be moving forward as well.
Yeah.
Both will involve traffic, particularly the West Edge District and Haggard Avenue. You can't do anything until we do something with that. So I'm just assuming that all these will be considered as we move forward.
Yeah.
Be a part of the peninsula discussion.
Yeah, I mean, all of that is generally taken into account when they run the growth models. So it gets pretty scientific and drills down based on permits and entitlements. So that's part of the math for sure. One other housekeeping item I just wanted to mention. This is a tight turnaround. You've seen the dates. I'm also going to work with staff, particularly Robbie and Michael, for having additional times where council members can come in and we can talk to get into the specifics about any given projects that you all might want to be, because I mean, it's going to take some staff level time versus just these meetings for you all to get educated or get your views put down on paper. So We'll work on those. That's an ongoing process, but we're going to start again with James Island and Johns Island over these next 2 weeks. And then it'll be the Peninsula and West Ashley, the following 2 weeks. So just we'll be looking for different times, and it could be via Zoom. It doesn't need to be in person, but just give us some dates on the calendar internally on that front.
Any other questions, comments? I've got a question. You might have said it, I missed it. I know we're trying to turn around by December 1st. Has Chairman Middleton given you any indication when he hopes for county council to have a defined referendum so it can be out there in the public and we can go and start advocating for selling it?
Yeah, I believe that per state law, they need to have the initiatives defined in the ballot. I think it's in March or maybe it's May, but we'll get you. I mean, we can back in from that, but they want it December that can then be vetted regionally and then fine-tuned down and let the data drive some of these initiatives and then kind of a final pass before it goes on the ballot.
I'm assuming there's been a similar ask of Mount Pleasant and that region and North Charleston.
Yeah, we've all been tasked with the same. I will say that that Mount Pleasant has been pretty forthcoming. They're going to probably be a little bit delayed from the December date. I think there might be in early January. You know, we're the largest and probably the most complicated. So I think we still want to shoot for that December 1 date.
Okay, and before we adjourn, I just want to recognize council members Parker, Appel, Bowden, and Shealy are all here today, not members of the committee, but interested members of the city council. Councilmember Parker has spoken. I saw that Councilmember Appel might have a question. I'm certainly happy to hear any comments or questions you all might have.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. And I just wanted to really raise a couple items. No need for a long discussion. I know we're winding down here, but in addition to defining the list of projects, which I think is going to be critical to getting the support needed to get the numbers reversed from last November on this effort, I think it's important to maybe keep in mind some of the non-project specific components of an overall sales pitch to try to get the public on board. Because I think, let's face it, I think there's a lot of folks in the community that look around and they think to themselves, a half-cent sales tax was adopted in 2016. It supposedly raised billions of dollars. And where in the world were those billions of dollars spent? Yeah, they've repaved a lot of roads and they look great, but where have the billions of dollars go? And so, you know, we've got to regain public trust. I think the county's been doing a great job by identifying some smaller, achievable projects. I saw there was a good event they had on James Island maybe a week or two ago where there was some demonstrated action on the ground and some smaller projects. But, you know, one of the issues I think with the 2016 sales tax was they adopted a pay-as-you-go model. They didn't bond that money. I think in the interest of saving on interest costs during perhaps a period where interest costs would never ever be lower in our lifetime. But, you know, by bonding this money from a 2026 sales tax that I hope passes, that sort of fuels up the tank right from the get-go so you can hit the ground running, make some things happen. Hopefully interest rates will be down by then, especially for these local government bonds. I think that's important as part of the overall story to tell people, is that if this gets adopted, we are borrowing the money to hit the ground running. Then when you start thinking about, you know, quarterbacking multiple multi-million-dollar projects around the whole county, does the county have the capacity from a staff level, from a technical level to do this? I think looking at that, analyzing that, being critical of that, and informing the public of the steps that are going to be taken so that if the public entrusts us with this money, entrusts us to run the credit card, to get the money, we have the capacity to run these projects efficiently and we can chew gum and walk at the same time. And the last thing I'll say, and this is probably one of the more controversial things, it is very, very, very important to get public input on infrastructure projects. We have to, that we're not China. We have to get people's feedback, but there comes a point where the public hearings and the feedback totally paralyzes projects, causes projects to double, quadruple, multiple X in cost. It delays them indefinitely. I saw in the newspaper the other day, I think it was in connection with the Highway 41 project, I think it was multiple dozens of public meetings over the years. Like, it comes to a point where we got to collect all the public feedback. We got to go out in the community. We got to get as much information as we can. But at a certain point, leaders have to lead. They have to decide on projects. They have to move forward. There's never going to be a large, significant infrastructure project that is going to be universally acclaimed by every single person in the world. And as leaders at this level, at the city level, at the county level, we have just got to man up on some of this stuff and deliver, because we haven't delivered effectively, and we need to do a better job in the future. So I would just say, in addition to identifying the projects, let's identify some of those, non-project related components that can really help buy some confidence and credibility with the public, so we can get this thing adopted, because it has to get adopted. If this thing goes down in November, we are in big trouble as a region, and we got to do everything we can to make it happen. So I thank the mayor for doing this. I thank our staff, and look forward to being part of this process.
Great. Thank you very much. Is there a hand up there? Councilmember McBride.
Yep. I just want to say one thing to tie two council members' comments together. Councilman Gregg, Councilman Appel. If this sales tax, the whole purpose of the sales tax is to fund almost exclusively at least 90% of state roads. That's a key point. This isn't Charleston County trying to raise sales taxes to improve necessarily county roads or city roads. They're overwhelmingly state roads that they've been unable to keep up with the population growth. So just wanted to make that point. I think that's one of the selling points of this potential sales tax.
Great. Thank you. All right. Any other Councilmember Shealy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank you for allowing others outside of this committee to be able to participate, and thank you to Mayor Cogswell for that as well. This is absolutely critical for District 2, 5, and 10, Outer West Ashley. Obviously, an area that already is struggling infrastructure-wise, traffic-wise, but it's certainly growing, and we're going to have a healthy discussion when our next meeting comes up. So I appreciate the way you're doing this, and thank you for your support on it.
And thank you for participating. I think the more we get participation internally and out there in the public, the better off this referendum is going to be, and the more likely it is it'll be not just pass, but be popular. So anything else, Councilmember Bowden? You came all this way? All right. Well, thank you. If not, if there's nothing else for the greater or common good, I'm going to call this meeting adjourned, and we'll see you all just a few minutes away as it means. Thank you all very much.